What's up, my brothers, my fam, my axe? Thank you very, very much for clicking on this video and being a very, very valuable viewer. Today, we're going to be going over the Barboza versus Murphy card from a prediction standpoint and from a betting perspective as well. And before we quickly get into the presentation, I want to quickly thank everyone who's been liking, commenting, and subbing and being just generally cool. Also, I want to send a special shout out to everyone who's part of the money team. And if you do enjoy this video and you get value from it, please make sure to like, sub, and if you're feeling extra generous, leave me a comment down below. Anyways, without further ado, let's get right into it. So first fight of the night, we've got Trócoli versus Oumar. Now, from a skill set perspective, Oumar looks to be a light heavyweight grappler, which is quite a rarity in that division. He does have some serviceable striking to set up his grappling, but his strong suit is definitely his grappling, and that's his main style here. He does have some good entries. He has some good takedowns, and he knows his strengths. You know, he's not going to want to stand and bang for 3 rounds, and he'll consistently shoot. And he's got a wrestling style of grappling. Trócoli, on the other hand, he's also a BJJ grappler. But before we get into his style and his skill set, the first thing that stands out to me is that his last fight was 2.5 years ago against a very, very low level of competition. And the fight before that, he actually fought in a Dana White Contender Series, and that was almost 5 years ago, where he actually got busted for steroids. So because of that, you know, just keep that in mind, guys, if you are wanting to attack the Trócoli side. Now, he's more of a BJJ style of grappler, and his striking is a little bit unknown. We haven't really seen too much footage of it. From a stylistic standpoint and how these two match up from a skill set perspective, stylistically, I like Oumar here. I think he's fought the tougher guys, he's fought more recently. And I do think he's overall the better wrestler and grappler. I think he's going to be able to get takedowns here and just kind of grind on Trócoli. If Trócoli is the one able to attempt the takedowns first, then I think Oumar is going to be able to kind of reverse those positions. From a betting perspective and from a odds movement standpoint, I'm seeing odds of around 1.39 on Sai at the moment. I think the odds are probably accurate. You know, he's been more active. Maybe it's a little bit too juiced because we do have a little bit of unknowns on the Trócoli side, and Trócoli's a big guy. You know, these guys are big guys. If they're exchanging heavy blows, then someone could land a big shot and it could be a knockout. But I am going to pick Oumar here. I think he's just going to be able to out grapple Trócoli in this spot. So yeah. Next fight, we have Vidal versus Gatto. Now, this is a fight that I'm not really that looking forward to. I think Gatto is a mid-level UFC fighter. She predominantly has a striking style of fighting, a boxing style, and will occasionally throw an occasional kick. She's also got mid-level grappling, I would say. And she's fought some good girls. She's fought like Lipsky and Cortez. Vidal, on the other hand, is a very low-level fighter, in my opinion. I even question if she's UFC level. She lacks a lot of the athletic gifts to go far. I do believe Melissa Gatto is a lot more physical. She's a lot more athletically gifted. She has a bad ground game as well. She can get control on that. And her striking is very bang average at best. Lacks a lot of speed, lacks a lot of athleticism. Overall, I don't really rate her ceiling too high in the UFC. From a betting perspective, all the money's been coming in on Gatto, and I agree with the steam. It is a women's MMA fight, and the fight could play out very competitive, so you've got to be kind of careful, but I do believe that Gatto is going to be able to grind out a decision, just kind of outpoint, outstrike, and just out-hustle Vidal. But yeah, there's no way I'll touch the Vidal side at all. I do think Gatto is the rightful favourite. So, next fight we have here, we got Alatengheili versus Kleydson Rodrigues. Now, Kleydson was originally a fighter who was fighting at 125. He was forced to move up to 135 because he kept missing weight. He's a very fast and twitchy and sharp type of striker. Has very nice kicks. He has a capoeira background. Now, the thing that stands out to me is that he does slow down because of how twitchy and fast and sharp he is. He is a guy that he will slow down. And against Vergara, who pushed the pace on him, made it an uncomfortable fight, he slowed down visibly, and his strikes were much less effective after 3 minutes. He was also controlled with the grappling as well, but he managed to get up a few times, reverse a few positions. Alatengheili He's a mid to lower level type of UFC fighter, in my opinion. He has a boxing style of striking. He's predominantly a boxer, very, very heavy on the lead leg. And he works with Santino Brendan, so shout out to those two. They always give like these guys good game plans, and yeah, shout out to those two. Big fan of their podcast. He's very, very tough though, and he won't quit. But I can never ever forget about that mental collapse against Gustavo Lopez, where he was up 2 rounds and he just completely mentally capitulated and ended up getting a draw. I think how these two match up from a stylist standpoint, I believe Kleyson's going to want to keep this fight technical, keep it pretty, and just kind of outstrike Healy using his kicks and his range, and just make it a clean, pretty fight. I think Kleydson has more tools on the feet, and he's got more versatility and more strikes to his arsenal, while Healy is going to want to close the distance, put the pressure on, test Kleyson's cardio, make it an uncomfortable dogfight, and land his boxing shots. From the betting perspective, I thought I'd be all over Kleydson here. I thought, yeah, maybe that's probably a decent bet at 1.554. But because of his cardio issues, at odds of 1.50, there's not much margin for error at those odds, and I'd rather just leave this one alone. But I do think this fight is going to go to a decision, so I might have to take a look at the overs there. So next fight we have here, we got Carnelossi versus Piera Rodrigues. Now, Ariane Carnelossi, her style reminds me of a poor man's version of Andrade. She's going to come forward, winning very, very powerful hooks, and she does leave her chin open there, but you know, she does have a little bit of power on the feet, and she will swing heavy as well, so it does look good for the judges. She will mix up her grappling as well, but I say she's not the most technically gifted grappler. She's more of a grappler based on pure strength and power more than technique and skill and finesse. She can get defense. Her defensive grappling was tested against Lupi, where she was completely dominated, but I let her off because Lupi's quite a strong defensive grappler, and I don't really think the grappling is going to play much of a factor in this matchup, because I don't really think Piera Rodrigues is the stronger offensive grappler either. Rodrigues has a boxing style of striking. She's, I'd say, lower to mid-level type of UFC fighter, and she's more of a counter-striker type of boxer, where she wants to make her opponent miss, and then she looks to counter and looks like kind of pitter-patter and just grind out decisions. And she also likes to dance around the cage. So yeah, her takedown defense is not the best. She can get controlled, and maybe Carnelossi could have some success there, but I think this is predominantly going to be a striking matchup. So from a stylistic standpoint, it's going to be Carnelossi's blitzing style of attacks, and she could definitely land some big shots when she's blitzing and possibly hurt Piera, and that could be enough to steal the round. But I'm going to trust Rodrigues's volume, activity, but it's definitely going to be a low confidence pick, guys. I'm seeing a lot of money's coming in on Rodrigues, and I don't know, maybe I'm reading the fight wrong. I might have to let my thoughts marinate, but at odds of around 1.56, like, I don't really see much margin or error at those odds, and I think this fight could be very, very competitive, and I think Carnelossi has enough to steal rounds with her blitzing style of attacks. So, but I'm going to pick Rodrigues, but it's going to be a low confidence pick, and she's not really a girl that I like to target from a bet perspective as a big, big favorite, because I do think she's kind of mid to lower level type of fighter. So yeah, anyways, next fight we have Magomedov versus Warlley Alves. Now, first thing that stands out to me is that Warlley Alves is not actually a real middleweight. He's actually a 170er moving up to middleweight. He clearly doesn't like weight cuts. So just keep that in mind. And the size and possibly the physicality could play a factor there, as Abus is the real middleweight. Both these guys are very, very well-known gassers. Abus, if we talk about Abus, he comes out very, very strong in round one, and it just seems to kind of fade. But in his past couple fights, that's what he's kind of done. And then in his fights against him in PFL, he fought at a lot more of a better tempo and pace. And yet Abus is predominantly a striker. He's pretty fast, he's pretty clean, and he can mix up his grappling. Warlley Alves is a guy who's very, very fragile. Just seems to, again, completely capitulate after rounds. He looks to load up on his heavy shots and strikes and kind of land power shots, which definitely doesn't help his cardio. How these two match up, I'm going to pick Abus here because I think he's more fluid on the feet, and he's the natural 185er. And if he fights at low tempo and pace, I trust his cardio more. But this is going to be a low confidence pick, guys. And from a betting perspective, I'll probably leave this one alone. Both these guys are very, very untrustworthy to trust, and you could be holding your breath if this fight goes out round one. It could turn into a sloppy fight. So yeah, Give me Abus there, low confidence. Now, next fight we have Tom Nolan versus Victor Martinez. Now, Nolan's a young fighter who's definitely been making improvements to his game. He looks pretty sharp and fast on the feet, but he is quite unproven. We've only really seen him finish lower level guys, and when he did take up a step up in competition against Nicholas Motta, he did get brutally smoked. But I think you would have learned from that. He's going to get better over time. To me, he's a bit of an unknown still. Like, I just need to see more footage before I can have a really, really strong opinion on the style. Victor Martinez looks very, very stiff. He's not as fluid and as sharp as fast as Tom Nolan, and he's not as athletically gifted. And he got KO'd by Jordan Levesque, which is never a good look. He's mainly got a boxing style of striking. He will occasionally throw the occasional low kick and oblique kick. I'm not too big on his upside in the UFC though. So I think how these two match up, I do believe Nolan's the better fighter. He's faster, more fluid. He has more upside and potential. For Victor to win this fight, I believe he has to make it a dogfight, keep coming forwards, make it an uncomfortable fight for Nolan, and test his cardio and test the unknowns. From a betting perspective, you have to pay up a big favourite price on Tom Nolan, and I agree with him being a big favourite. But for me, he's a little bit too unproven still to throw into a parlay. So yeah, give me Tom Nolan in a spot, medium to high confidence. Now, next fight we have here, we got Ramiz Brahimaj versus Themba Gorimbo, which of course is famously the Rock's boy. Now, I'm going to state, obviously, the most important aspect of the fight is how they match up from a stylistic standpoint and from a skill set perspective. But considering the guy, this is a Rock's boy, he's got a lot of eyeballs on him. Like, the UFC probably wants to push this guy. Let's just be real here. Like, the UFC sees money with this guy. He's going to bring more attention to the sport. Rock's going to help support him. The Rock's a massive superstar. So I think they're going to give him a favourable matchup, and I think they pick him a good opponent here for him. He has some power on the feet. He's a big guy. He can land a big shot on the feet. He has some grappling too, but I think he's just an okay wrestler. He's not the most skilled grappler. His grappling style is more based on physicality and pure strength. Defensive grappling against AJ Fletcher didn't look too good, but I think he is making improvements to his game. You know, he's a big African. You know, those Africans have a lot of fighting genetics, hope, you know. And I don't think his cardio is the best, but he will fight for it. The first thing that stands out to me with the Ramiz side is he hasn't fought in 2+ years. He's not the most fluid striker. You know, he's more of a get guys down to the mat and try and sub them in round one. And he did struggle with the physicality of Court McGee. So I'm wondering if Themba Gorimbo is a big, strong guy. So I wonder if, you know, he's going to struggle to get the takedowns here. And I don't trust his cardio outside of round one. I kind of consider him a round one or sub type of fighter. How these two match up from a stylistic standpoint, I think the UFC definitely wants Gorimbo to win. Let's just keep it real. I think he is the better striker. He has more power on the feet. And I think he has enough physicality to negate the grappling intense and clinch intense from Ramiz. So I'm going to pick Gorimbo here, medium confidence. From a betting perspective, Gorimbo's a little bit unproven for me, but I'm seeing a bit of money coming on Ramiz, so maybe the odds will improve on Gorimbo, but I do think he's the justified favourite. And I think if it does go to the scorecards, then, you know, with these judges, they'll be like, yeah, give it to Gorimbo, give the guy the push. So, next fight we have here, we got Emily Ducote versus Vanessa Demopoulos. Now, Emily Ducote has a boxing style of striking. He definitely has a preference for the straight shots, the jab, the crosses. And I like how she does go to the body as well. She will occasionally throw a nasty leg kick. Overall, she has pretty good technique, but she moves a little bit stiff and it's not the most athletically gifted. So she will suffer against the highest level competition, which we kind of saw against like the likes of Lupi and Angela Hill. I believe Emily Ducote is a very good women's MMA fighter. And I think she's more like a mid-level type of fighter. Now, when it comes to the grappling aspect, she was taken down by Lupi. And I fight against Zapertilla, probably butchering that name. She was able to defend some takedowns and get up. And against Murata, a fight back in 2019, she was able to negate some of the grappling attempts as well. So Vanessa, sadly, is a girl that I'm not that big on from a skill set perspective. I think she's She has a willingness to flop to her back and just kind of trust in her submission attempts, and she's willing to spend large portions of the rounds off her back, which is terrible for the judges. And she's not the most effective and strong offensive grappler here. So I think Emily Ducote is going to have enough to keep this fight standing. And from a striking standpoint, Vanessa Demopoulos just kind of throws single power shots on the feet, which is not really that effective for winning rounds at all. And I don't entirely trust her cardio either. Stylistically, from a skill set perspective and how these two match up, I like Ducote here because I believe she is the better striker. She's more fluid on the feet. She has better technique, puts out more volume, pushes a better pace and tempo. And I think for Vanessa to win this fight on the feet, I think she's going to have to land a big shot in one of these exchanges. I think the best path here is to test the grappling, but I don't really trust the offensive grappling game at all. Maybe she could pull guard or something like those and kind of go for a submission attempt. But I think Ducote has enough wrestling to keep this fight on the feet. And from a betting perspective, I see why Ducote is the big favorite here. Vanessa is personally a girl that I'll never personally like to have money on. I don't really trust a style to win fights in UFC. So as crazy as it sounds, I think Ducote is the side from a betting perspective. But I think about it, I think the odds are kind of accurate. So next fight we have Adrian Yanez versus Vinicius Salvador. Now, this is a good fight in my opinion. Adrian Yanez making a comeback. I think the UFC have given Adrian Yanez a favourable matchup to help him get back on track. Adrian Yanez is a good mid-level UFC bantamweight in my opinion. Got a boxing style of striking. He will occasionally throw the occasional low kick, maybe an oblique kick as well. And he's got a very nice count boxing, clean technique. Now, Vinicius Salvador, he's a flyweight who couldn't make weight and he's moving up to 135. He's got a hands down low style of striking, but I think he kind of lacks the athleticism, speed, and the power to go far in the division. Loves to throw these looping hooks, has average grappling, and seems to get worse as the fight goes on. So how these two match up from a stylistic standpoint, I'm going to have to pick Yanez here because I just think this is a favourable matchup for him. I think his style of boxing is much more effective. I think Yanez is going to be much faster on the feet. I think he's going to be able to win the striking exchanges and be able to grind out a decision, if not to find the kill shot on Salvador. I don't think the grappling will play much of a factor in this fight. Plus, I do think this is a big step down in competition for Adrian Yanez. So high confidence in Adrian Yanez in this spot, and I might consider it for a parlay piece, but I need to let my thoughts marinate. So next fight we have here, we got Angela Hill versus Luana Pinheiro. Now, Angela Hill, she's a UFC veteran. She's 39, but she still won a fight against an uppercomer in Denise Gomez. She still looks very good. But obviously the age is a little bit of a concern. You kind of worry that one of these days that these older fighters come in and look completely washed. She has a very solid game. I like her style a lot. Nasty knees in the clinch. She's effective in the clinch. Good striking too. High volume, will land a lot of strikes, will mix up the boxing and kicking. Good overall pace, speed, pressure, and volume. Very tough, has heart, and her record is very deceiving. 16-13, probably the best 16-13 fighter we'll probably ever see. Luana Pinheiro, her style is that she throws everything into these strikes and is quite explosive and powerful, and she could probably do some damage, you know, if she lands one of these powerful hooks. So Angela Hill's got to watch out for that, and she also has a nice little low kick. But because she puts everything into these shots, if you are able to survive that initial storm, she will gas out and show clear signs of fatigue and becomes much less effective as the fight progresses, and her whole entire demeanor will change. Has a judo background here, but not really too big on offensive grappling. She loves a good judo / head and arm throw. I think how these two match up from a stylistic standpoint, unless Hill was completely washed overnight, I think Hill needs to survive that initial avalanche and storm from Pinheiro and look to slowly overtake and take over the fight using her pace, pressure, and look to grind out a decision, if not possibly find a finish. I think it would be wise if I was in Hill's corner. I'd be like, look, just play it safe, maybe clinch on Pinheiro, tire her out a bit in the early goings. For Luana to win this fight, I think she has to have blitz on Hill and just land a big shot on the feet and look to possibly steal the round that way or possibly find a knockout. But I think Hill's going to be pretty hard to finish because she's very tough. From a betting perspective, I think Hill's the side you want to target, and almost even money, I think is probably worth the risk. I've got a little bit in. I'll make a best bets video later on in the week. I'll showcase some of my best plays, live betting strategies, parlay pieces, etc. So yeah, I think Hill's going to win this fight, and I have medium to high confidence. The only thing that concerns me is Pinheiro landing a big shot, or Hill's age coming through. But yeah, I think this is actually quite a good stylistic matchup for Angela Hill in the spot. So next fight in the co-main event, we've got Khaos Williams versus Carlston Harris. Now, Khaos is a very explosive, powerful. His style is he will crash forwards and look to land his athletic power hooks. And he does have a powerful low kick too. Will leave himself open when he's coming forwards, kind of leaving his chin open. But he is very tough, and he's very dangerous, and he's always live to land a big shot. Harris, I do like his style. He got out physical against Jeremiah Wells, which kind of makes sense because Jeremiah Wells is a tank, and he's a unit, and Harris is more of a tall, skinnier frame for that division. But he still, he never gave up. He still managed to find a choke in round 3. Harris has a very long, rangy style of striking. It's quite unique. We don't really see how Harris throws these straights, and he fights long as well. So you definitely need to be on your P's and Q's, because the way he throws these shots, they can definitely hurt you. And he's got a bit, I think he's got a bit of underrated power, and he throws these strikes so unorthodox, something not really used to. He has a decent level of grappling as well, offensively. And he does have a win over Impa, which looks like really good now. From a stylistic standpoint, I think it's going to be the blitzing, attacks, and physicality of Khaos versus the straight shots and the technique and the grappling of Harris. I do think Harris is overall the better fighter, but Khaos defies logic at times. And I do think Harris is quite vulnerable, and that can be there for the taking. But it's going to be a low confidence pick, but I'm going to pick Harris. I might change my pick later on in the week, because I do think this is a tricky fight to predict, but I think he is the better fighter. He's more skilled. And I think he's going to be able to mix up his grappling as well, but it's definitely going to be a low pick. From a betting perspective, this is a fight I don't really want to target, because I could just see the fight playing out in many different ways. I think there's going to be strong opinions on the Khaos side and possibly the Harris side, but yeah, I think this is a tricky fight from a betting perspective and from a prediction standpoint. So we go into the main event of the evening. We have the OG, legend of the game, Edson Barboza versus the up-and-comer in Leron Murphy. Now, from a skill set perspective and from a stylistic standpoint, Murphy is very athletic, has good variety in the strikes. He mix up the boxing, kicking, and will mix up his layer of attack, but his main strength is the boxing. He will mix up his grappling too as well, but I say he's a mid-level grappler. And I think it's going to be tricky for him to take down Edson Barboza. Barboza's got very good takedown defense. I know he got taken down by likes of Khabib, but those are just exceptional grapplers. And yeah, I think Barboza has very good serviceable takedown defense. He's also a switch stance fighter, Murphy. And I think his ceiling is around the mid-level fight level of the featherweight rankings. Barb, OG of the fight game, fought killers, for the way high level competition, has explosive power and technical Muay Thai style of striking. He's got nasty explosive kicks, knees, punches. Against Sodiq Yusuff, he got hurt early, but he looked like he did a good job of kind of recovering, even though he never looked 100% like he fully recovered, but managed to grind out the win there. And you have to be a very strong offensive grappler to be able to take down Barboza, in my opinion. Stylistically, the age and the wear and tear of Barboza does concern me. He's been in a ton of wars, and you kind of wonder, like, one of these days, is the wheels just going to completely fall off? And I do think he's declining, but he's still dangerous. He can still win fights. Murphy, for Murphy to come through and get this win, I think he's going to have to be able to pressure Barb, hurt him with his boxing. And I could see a scenario where Barboza is just able to keep the pressure off Murphy and just kind of outpoint him, outstrike him, use his low kick, and just kind of like keep him at range. This is a tricky fight to predict, in my opinion, guys, and I'm having a tough time picking a winner, but I'm gonna pick kind of 50-50 here. So I'll go with Murphy, because I do think he's the younger fighter, but I could definitely see Barboza winning this fight from a betting perspective, I'm definitely going to leave this fight alone. I see why people took the early lines on Leroy Murphy, because I do slightly lean towards that side from a betting perspective, but I honestly think a pick'em line seems quite fair on this fight, and I do think it's a very, very tricky, hard fight to predict. So that's the end of the presentation. Thank you so much for staying to the end. I really, really appreciate it. If you did enjoy the video and got value from it, make sure to like, comment, and if you're feeling extra generous, leave me a sub. Actually, I've got those two mixed around. Anyways, thank you so much for tuning in, yeah, and good luck with your bets and predictions.